Welcome to Conscious Quest, the LA-based podcast where we aim to stay conscious about everything current.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Parlow.
My name is Rishi Khatri.
And we are here to talk about state of the world today from a macro perspective with a spiritual twist. We are Conscious Quest. So happy you're all here. I think we'll just start right out and talk about who we are and why we're doing this. So, Rishi, tell everybody about you a little bit.
Absolutely. So my name is Rishi Khatri, and I am the administrator and co-owner of a company called Clear Mind Treatment. And we work with people with depression and anxiety and PTSD, and we use cutting-edge services like ketamine, psychotherapy, EMDR, neurofeedback, TMS, and other things to help people break free of their patterns or their samskara. And we can talk more about that later.
Perfect. And I'm Sarah Parlow. I'm a nurse anesthetist of about 15 years. I'm also an actress and a writer, and I've always had a special interest in spirituality. That's where Rishi and I connected. And, just a little backstory, we were having this amazing hike. Where were we at, Rishi?
We're over walking on Mount Hollywood Trail
here in Los Angeles, California. And we just had these really incredible deep conversations about what's going on with things in the world today and what it means in terms of like humanity and cycles of history. And we just really thought, just off the cuff, it might be a great idea for a podcast.
I agree. I think part of what my mission might be is to help people understand what the whole system is actually doing and more about why things are happening and how things got to be the way they are. Because the world is confusing. If you look at it from just a micro piece and from your perspective of the world, it can be very confusing. And how did the economics become this way? Or how did religion become such an important part? Or how did your religion or all these other things, how did it become so prominent? And we just accept things as well without really understanding. But by understanding the total, we can then have a better shot of maybe at least having peace within ourselves or maybe even changing the system altogether.
Excellent points. And I think another thing that is of interest is just the nature of the human mind and human consciousness and how it works. And sometimes the pitfalls of our own thinking and how we can get into sort of these microcosms, these echo chambers in our own heads. How do we work our way through that? And what have, the spiritual pathways of eons back really taught us about navigating through the limitations of our own humanity? And where are we going evolutionary-wise as a race, as humankind? And I think it's very safe to say all of humanity is really going through it right now. I think that there is a lot of just internal unrest and energetically things feel very scattered. We don't know what to do with it. And so let's talk about it.
Well, I think there's a lot, what you just said. The world is going through a big change. And if you look, the world's kind of been going through a change for quite some time. But I think in the most recent years, the changes that were kind of more subtle over decades or even millennia, now they're becoming extremely rapid. And you can see that through conservative, quote unquote, conservative movements, people who just can't take that type of change, or the concepts that are coming up are too difficult for them to understand. So they fight it, and they're using all types of tactics and psychological types of distortions and using gaslighting techniques or whatever it might be, because that's what they can do to protect themselves and to protect their own psyche, but it comes at a massive cost to other people.
Right. And I think what we're really talking about is the comfort of the conservative movement is really the black and white thinking. It simplifies things so much. And it's great if you're within the power structure, which most of us are not. And the power structure is surprisingly narrow, I would say. It's not just white heterosexual men in America. I think it's really this very tiny 1% at the top, which has a lot of power, pulls a lot of the strings. And I think both of us could represent marginalized communities of some sort in the world.
Sure. I mean, I think in many ways, but in many ways, my community, because you guys can't see me, but I'm Indian American.
Mm-hmm.
And what's fascinating about my folks is that there's a huge amount of, strangely amount of Republican Indians that they.
Shocking, right?
Well, I mean, it's not so shocking if you
really?
look at it from the standpoint from economics and from power.
Yeah.
What draws people towards Republican banner, and it's about money, it's about power, it's about status in many ways as well.
Yeah.
People like to seek that, and they feel more because it is about money. Ultimately, it reminds me of what you said. It's like, who is the power structure, right? What is it? What do you think it is? What's always at the root of all evil?
Money and power.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you look at it from an economic standpoint, who stands to gain, from any of these things,
And the question is really, in America, it's in our Constitution that all men are created equal. I will point out it doesn't say all women are created equal. And who were those men they were talking about in the Constitution?
Landed men, men who had money, who had land. Actually, I'm not sure it actually said it in there, but definitely wasn't the slaves.
Yes.
There were 3/4 of a man that were given to the landowner, right, or the slave owner. So even in the United States, where all men were created equal, well, interestingly, not really. So even from the very standpoint of the founding fathers, it was never really evil or equal.
No, there's a huge history of subjugation in this country. And the movement of slaves from Africa was the largest forced migration in human history.
Sure.
And I think what is really important to point out is that we've never really made accommodations for that, error of our own, or what's the word? We've never made reparations for that. And I think on some level, there's still this sort of psychic wound that exists in America over that. And
of course there is. I mean, it's not just like the African American or Africans that are brought over that are wounded, but look at the wholesale genocide. We always look first, at well, not always, I'm speaking too freely, but there's also a whole other population that was here even before any of the founders, and they were completely wiped out. They're not even part of the actual conversations about reparations. Can you imagine talking about reparations for Native Americans?
Right.
And the natives that were here. Oh my gosh. I think that obviously African Americans do. I mean, they were harmed. Whether or not reparations, that's kind of like a political question. However, there's a lot of harm, but maybe, I think it's easy to look at the harm.
Yeah.
But what's the solutions to all this? And maybe that's maybe more about, because I think it's easy to go down into, and from my standpoint, because I see it, and I used to do this, it's easy to go into a downward spiral or to catastrophize and to look as the whole world is falling apart. Right. Or you can look at another way, which the world is spinning up into something more beautiful. And if you look at it, depending on your perspective, and this is where I come in from my company standpoint, is in how do you change that perspective out? How do you look at it in a healing way, or in a way that's the world is what you see it to be. So maybe the fact that there is like all this quote unquote backlash, maybe this is like the last throes, of like an old world order that it knows. On a subconscious basis that it will not stand much more because you can't. It's too connected.
Yes.
And there's too much knowledge. We have an AI. We have a possible AI consciousness about to be born. It may already be born, as far as I know.
It's incredible. And so how do we heal any sort of like subconscious, pain is through shedding light and bringing it into the light.
Yeah.
And So I think, yeah, that's where we can put our attention, right, is on the solutions, like you said.
I think that there's no limit to the amount of problems, and there's also no limit to the amount of solutions. So it depends on what your perspective is, you know. And again, you know, it's just whatever you focus on will become your world.
And we are in an epidemic of loneliness and mental health challenges here in America.
Lots of emotional challenges for a lot of folks.
It's really true. I can speak as a marginalized community on my behalf. I'm in the throes of it right now as a trans female. I transitioned in 1995, 28 years ago. And while back in the day, I wasn't really seen or heard in media as much, except, you know, as far as butts of jokes and comedy routines, there is this sort of double-edged sword that has come with visibility, which is so important for us in striving for equal rights. But at the same time, there has been just this tremendous backlash in America. And I think it's representative of, like, you know, the entire world needs to process certain things at certain times. And now it's just that moment. And how can we navigate through all of these changes? And again, all of life is really shades of gray.
Well, I would say to a lot of folks, and it is difficult, you know, you can do what you can.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think that when we start allowing, you know, the whole world's problems, it's just easy to get immersed in CNN and especially the internet. You go to Fox News, you can flip through like as many news sites and pseudo news sites and all these things, and all of a sudden you're just kind of just overwhelmed with stuff, and you can't let yourself do that. You know,
right.
And you have to just focus on your own life. And, you know, do you know who Abraham Hicks is?
Love Abraham Hicks.
Yeah, so Abraham, like she has talked about this, or they have talked about this several times. You know, it's just your life is you still have to live your life, you know, and you still have to be, you know, and do the things. You have to go to the grocery store, and you have to go, you know, I don't know, go on vacation, go do
chop wood,
yeah,
whatever,
chop wood, you know, go do dishes, you know, these things, and you have to live, and so focus on that stuff, and then when the time has come to do something, then do it, but don't focus on that all the time.
Exactly.
You know, you start obsessing, and then all of a sudden your world becomes like this very bleak place. You start dreaming of crazy stuff.
Which is indicative of a lot of people in America right now. And for those of you who don't know, Abraham Hicks is essentially a channeled personality through an individual. I don't know that person's name, but she channels a lot of this.
Esther Hicks.
Esther Hicks.
Well, yeah, so she's more like kind of a new agey manifester, you know, so in the new school of manifestations. So lots of those folks, the manifestors, just kind of quickly eliminate that. They believe that the more that you focus your energy onto something, you can literally bring it into the world. It'll just come out, you know, and almost wishful thinking. But if you look
with results.
With results, that's right. But if you look at it from a psychological standpoint, it is true. You know, I'll go back to my same thing. Is whatever you focus on will become that. You know, and if you're thinking about like a new car, and it's not just suddenly going to manifest. I mean, maybe it could. That'd be really cool, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, you have like a red Corvette. You know,
love that idea.
Sitting there. But if you start thinking about something, you'll start researching it. You'll start talking to more people about it. You become more knowledgeable about it. Maybe you'll start saving for it, and all of a sudden, and within no time, there's going to be a shiny new Corvette sitting in your driveway.
And that's the magic of putting attention and energy towards something. And so my question for you, Rishi, is what would you like to see as one of our goals for this podcast?
Well, I mean, I think I would love for more people to have more hope, to have techniques maybe to then be able to use these tools in their own life to bring this type of feeling of connectedness to the universe, to themselves, to solutions, to having a happier, fun existence. I mean, it is, even in the depths of misery or miserable places, there's still something there to see as beautiful. You know, the ephemeral. We can touch the ephemeral. at any given time. And Joseph Campbell talked about that all the time.
We're going to talk about him coming up in episodes too. But essentially what I'm hearing you talk about is having an internal versus external locus of control, which is this sort of psychological babble term, meaning where is the center of your control? And we can't control everything in the external world. It causes us anxiety to try to. But if we can control what we can, well, then now we're working with something.
Don't worry about those things that you can't change. You can't change the weather.
Yes.
You can't change traffic in LA. You can't do
We've
that.
tried.
Yeah, you really can't do it. So accept those things as forces of nature out there.
Yeah.
And there's something like, I've been doing a lot of research on Stoics recently.
Oh, cool.
And the Stoic philosophy, which is like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca and Epicurus and some other folks. I can't name them right now off the top of my head.
This is a teaser for you.
Yeah, but that's kind of what they talk about. Do what you can in your own life, and don't worry about those things that you can't. Live, laugh. And even in difficult moments like LA traffic, we'll go back to that trope again. You can still learn. You can put your own beliefs into practice.
It's a lesson in patience all the time. And so I think one of the goals I want to bring is just adding value to people's lives in whatever way. And like you talked about it, like giving people tools and reframing things. And, these are all common issues that we're all dealing with in modern life in America, maybe the world. And so, yeah, how can we help? How can we be of service? For anyone that's listening, if you have a topic you want us to cover, we encourage you to throw that out to us, and it could be something really fun for us to tackle. So
I love it.
Yeah.
I can't wait to get to more of our topics. We have a whole list of stuff that we're going to go through. And if you guys have anything that you want to listen or hear about as well, we're happy to talk about it.
And hopefully we'll have some great guests too to spice it up a little bit. So thank you all for listening to our first episode. We are so excited to have you, and stay tuned for more.
Absolutely.
Bye for now.